Awesome. Shall we begin?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first edition of the UBC Neuroscience Podcast. I'm your host, Raday Sani, and today I have the rest of the academic team with me. I'll let you guys introduce yourself.
I'm Finn.
I'm Addy.
I'm Neelan.
I'm Kyler.
Awesome. So, just to get us started here, I'm going to ask a question that Kyler asked me on our very first day in neuroscience. We had a little social, and he went around asking everyone, what's your favorite brain part and why? Now, I remember what you said back then, but I'm wondering if it's changed.
I think back then I said it was the pons because it is the gossip of the cerebellum, which it's still as we've learned more about it, definitely is the gossip of the cerebellum.
Right.
But I think I've changed my answer more to the medulla.
Okay.
Because it is responsible for all the very important brain responses that none of the rest of the brain wants to deal with, like the heart, breathing, not digestion, but vomiting. Love that. So yeah, a very vital piece of the brain.
Yeah. Who doesn't like vomiting?
I kind of agree with that too. I feel like the medulla, people think of it as primitive.
Right.
There's lots of different animals and our ancestors had it, right? It doesn't get the shiny kind of love that the cerebral cortex might. But just because it's primitive doesn't mean it's not important. Like Kyler said there, it does all that.
So you're both pons people
Yeah.
now?
Medulla. Yeah.
Medulla, yeah.
Yeah, can't go
Sick.
without it.
In my opinion, that one's kind of boring. But boring but important. But sometimes the important things are boring. You know?
Sure.
It's true.
I'm more of an amygdala man myself.
I see.
I think my favorite behavioral trait is fear and PTSD. So that's why, and fear memory, to be
Right.
specific.
Gotta
fear
remember.
memory.
Gotta
So
remember.
PTSD and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me.
Okay. Same as you. I feel like when you do you can't medulla lesions. It's over, man.
Yeah.
So much. But you can do so many amygdala lesions and see all the behavioral tests. And I feel like that's one of the brain regions where you really see the effect of those lesion studies, right? All of a sudden these mice are not scared of heights, not scared of water, things like that. And I really like seeing that.
Right on.
Clear cut.
Right on. I got to talk about my favorite region before we go, which is the orbitofrontal cortex. It's this little brain region that's located in the prefrontal cortex, and it's got huge implications with decision making and addiction behaviors and stuff like that. So that's mine, and it hasn't changed since first year. Speaking of first year, though, I want to hear, what was your first year experience like? Kyler, Neil, and Natty and I are in our third year now. Finn, you're in your second year, so you're fresh out of first year. I want to hear from you first.
Me first?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was that first year experience like, and what led you to neuroscience?
Well, I think it was pretty great, honestly. Coming from a teeny little town up north, definitely some imposter syndrome in there. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Should I be here? Everyone's going to be so smart.
Right.
Didn't know whether my little hometown school really prepared me. But, I'm here in neuro now, so it must have worked out all right.
Right on.
I definitely flip-flopped around a lot before coming into neuro. I mean, back in high school, I did intend to go into neuroscience, but then at one point I was a comp-sci major, actually, and then a math major, and then everything in between. But by the end of it, I found my way back to neuro. And
Very cool.
I'm
What
glad I
made
did.
you sort of pick that at the end?
Like I said, I'd always been interested in it back in high school, and I think just doing more of the life sciences with bio and chemistry were more what I liked rather than Math 100 and physics and those guys there. I don't know if you guys had similar experiences there or what, but yeah.
Yeah. What were you guys? Were you dead set on neuro when you came into university?
I wasn't. I don't think I even considered neuro. And I actually was considering cognitive systems, which I guess is similar. But I think I decided probably the day of when it was due, made my final decision, right? Because I was still between a few different majors. But in terms of my first year, I came from Calgary, which is much bigger than your village or where. But I felt less. I did feel some imposter syndrome, but I mainly felt homesick in terms of damn, there's no one to make food for me anymore. My mom's here, so I had to do all this myself now, and it was a good experience. But yeah, and in terms of school, First year, like it wasn't too bad. I'd say that the mistakes I made was mainly thinking that I didn't need to study and I could get by, because that's how it was in high school.
Yeah.
But then it didn't work, and then I paid the price for math 104.
Oh,
So yeah, I also didn't like those classes. But yeah, I think I decided on neuro in the end because of the fact that it was a new major.
Right.
And because of that, I always think it's funny because it's like it's a new major, so it almost seems like the major itself is plastic in terms of the idea that you can really have a big impact on something that's new, because there isn't much there already.
Right.
So you can, like, your ideas will, like, especially with Steven, who's the director of the program, he helps with that a lot. Like, any ideas you have, he'll let you do it, and he'll help you. So
couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And they'll stay there. Like, whatever changes you make, they'll stay if they're good.
And help like future generations of people coming through this program.
Yeah. So like the major, like a brain, the major itself is pretty plastic. Yeah. And that's what I enjoy about the major.
Do you want to explain what neuroplasticity is while we're at it?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I'll get this definition right.
Do your best.
But it's just the idea that the brain, the wiring of the brain, and the structural and functional wiring of the brain can change. And I guess at certain times in your life, it's more plastic, meaning it can change more easily than others.
Right.
But after a while, it stays. Whatever wiring is there, it stays. And I think you told me this, and that it's funny that whatever music or something that you listen to in your 20s or your in your late teens, that will stick with you your entire life. And I guess that's an example of functional plasticity.
That's like an interesting little caveat where music taste sort of plateaus after like your 20s, where whatever music you like right now is what you will like for the rest of your life. And this is one of the reasons like I picked neuroscience, just to learn cool stuff like that, learn how, unravel the mysteries of how we perceive the world and stuff like that. Yeah. Now, you talked about how like coming into a new major was exciting for you. I want to hear from the two of you, because you were a part of the pioneer cohort of this major. So were you worried about that coming in?
For me, no, absolutely not. In fact, that was the reason I picked neuroscience. Actually, when I came to UBC, I wanted to do microbiome, actually. But then I found out when I was applying for the majors, right, the specialization, that this new neuroscience program was just created. So then my first thought at the time was like, I actually didn't even have any interest in neuroscience. It's literally just the idea that I could be the first ever generation. I could go around talking about I was the first ever generation of neuroscience students in the UBC undergrad program. So immediately after that, I just picked it. And I actually didn't know much about neuroscience. Like, I know it's the brain, stuff like that. I know cerebellum and things like that. But I really didn't have any interest in the subject, not more than microbiome. It was about equal. So I just picked it, and then now that I'm in it, actually, I find myself really enjoying it, because, like you said, learning about all these fun facts, learning about people's behavior, things we can kind of map out, is very interesting to me.
Right on, Kyler.
What was the question again?
So were you like worried about coming into a major that's never been run before at UBC?
Oh yeah, I was terrified. Like, originally I was excited to do behavioral neuroscience, because that was like what the neuroscience program was beforehand. So in my first year, I was like, oh, I'll get ahead. I was doing Psych 101 and 102.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, so in second year, I won't have to do that. And then, like, in December, I found out the neuroscience program was made, and we don't need Psych 101 or 102 anymore. But I was already enrolled in them. So it kind of, like, messed up my plans there. But yeah, I was a little terrified, like, going into a brand new program, because, like, they've never really done it before. All these neuroscience courses are new, and they sometimes show it. Like, sometimes it just feels like they're making it up as we go along. Sometimes it's like very well planned out. But yeah, but I'm enjoying it. I love the brain and neuroscience, and we've talked about like brain stuff for hours, and I send you the videos I make sometimes while I'm having like creative strokes of gotta do something. So yeah, I really like the program. It's super interesting. Yeah, love the brain.
Right on. And were you dead set on neuroscience coming in?
Once when I enrolled in UBC, yes. Before that, I was going to do engineering.
Wow.
I was going to do mechatronics engineering, so like all the coding and building of stuff. And I was because that's what I did in high school. I built a bunch of robots and stuff. But as I've like gotten further into neuroscience, I've kind of realized like how similar the brain and computers are, and how, I mean, our basic understanding of the brain itself came from computers. Like that's how. Like computational neuroscience was like the first kind of way we started to understand the brain. We were dissecting how circuits work, and we were like, wait, what if this just applies to the brain? So there's definitely a bunch of like overlap there.
Right. I want to contrast like your guys' experience and myself, like being one of the first people in this major with yours, Finn, because you came in like a year later when things were a little more ironed out.
Yeah, like I've talked to Addie about some of the classes, and it sounds like they have changed stuff from year to year, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like you said, your guys' input is changing the program for better for next generation, and then hopefully our year's input will make it a little bit better for the next and the next.
Right
next
on.
and-
It's
and
an
so
iterative
on,
process.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I'm the second and not the first because you guys are the guinea pigs, right?
Yeah.
They probably figure out the major kinks then and get
Yeah.
it sorted out for us. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, along those same lines, let me just continue. Like, do you find the courses to be as hard as, everyone in neuro says they are?
I feel like not. I feel like whenever you tell someone you're in neuroscience, I don't know if you guys have this experience, they're like, you're in neuroscience? Oh my, you must be so smart.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like my roommate's in astrophysics, and some of the stuff he's
God.
doing is like,
Yeah.
no way. We're just memorizing what this part of the brain does and what that part of the brain does,
Yeah. Well, the brain is more complex in the universe that's out
it's
there.
true. But yeah. I think people associate neuroscience with neurosurgery. Like they make that jump
Yeah.
instantly, and it's not quite the same.
Yeah,
But,
certainly
yeah.
people have asked me that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're cutting open brains like no.
You will be cutting open brains in your third-year lab, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We did in the sheep brain lab thingy. Sheep brain lab dissection. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun.
It's a good preamble to like the third-year lab where you get to dissect, an actual human brain, or rather not dissect, but sort of pick up and look at an actual human brain and spinal cord. So that was my favorite part. That's been my favorite part of neuroscience so far.
Huh.
Yeah.
That sounds hype.
What about you guys? Is it as hard as they make it out to be?
No, it's so awkward when someone does that. It's like,
Yeah.
because you don't know what to say.
I like how that's a common experience
it's
for
a- yeah.
everyone.
No.
Because honestly, I think it's the same difficulty as like biology or like any other science
Right.
program. But yeah, so I never know what to say when someone says I usually just say, sure. But yeah, it is weird. I guess it is a common theme.
Yeah. What about you, Neelan?
Yeah, honestly, I have the same thing. People tell me like they're shocked in neuroscience, but I think like Addie says, it's really not that crazy. I think there's definitely some aspects that are different, right? Like you've got different things you need to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not going to be the same as math. It's a totally different type of problem solving. But I think overall it's not that bad, and you can kind of just cruise along and shake it in. Yeah.
Right on. Kyler.
I mean, I don't have that much I can add based on what everyone else has said. I think the big thing is everyone's brain works differently in the stuff they're able to do. Like I am personally really bad at like cellular biology. It's not for me, but when we're doing neurons, I'm totally fine. And I have no idea why that is.
Mm-hmm.
But like everyone's brain kind of just works differently. Like my brother, he's doing astrophysics. He totally understands it. Like he can just see it and understand it. And I'm like, I look at it, I have no idea what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I feel pre-wired to like analyze the brain. I have brain proprioception. Like I kind of just understand like where everything is and what's going on. And it just makes intuitive sense to me. But when I explain it to someone else, it makes no sense to them. So yeah, everyone's brain.
Yeah, don't sell yourself short. I've seen your videos.
Yeah, no, I was gonna add to what Kyler was saying. It's like we're not saying it's easy. It's not easy, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not like levels harder than biology. But yeah, like there are times where I'm sure all of us have found our classes difficult.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
Speaking of classes, like I'm gonna start with Kyler this time. But what are the profs like in neuroscience?
Oh, they're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we've had one that like I've disliked. They're all like really nice, and they definitely like know their stuff, and you can
I
ask.
probably won't listen to this. You don't have to lie.
What have you guys had? Like Claudia Krebs? Like she.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Incredible prof.
Yeah, she's incredible. Like, and she's so passionate about everything. Like when she
Yeah.
was talking about the basal ganglia the other day, I was like, oh my god, I love the basal ganglia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like she gets me passionate about like learning this stuff. And
Yeah.
like, I'm already passionate, but like she gets me like really into it. So yeah, all of the professors we've had, I have no complaints really. Like sometimes I think the test may be like a little unfair. I think everyone might have experienced that during some of the finals.
Oh, yeah.
But like generally, like the teaching itself, I think is like amazing.
All right. One of you guys want to chime in on profs?
The only time I've ever not liked a prof is when their test is hard but fair. You know, it's like in the moment,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, why would just
Yeah.
give me a really easy test, you know? But in the end, like it makes sense why they would give it, and
Yeah.
it's like it did, like looking back on it is like probably been like one of the most useful classes, the ones that have harder tests.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
I won't name names though. But
Sure.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've only had 3 neuroscience profs so far, just being in first term of second year. Tim and Angie with NSci 200, and then IPEC with the research methods class. And yeah, so far so good. I'm looking forward to meeting all these names that you guys have talked about, from Dr. Soma to
Oh yeah.
Krebs and everyone. It'll be
Great
good.
profs. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do love the teaching team there. Neelan, you got anything to add?
I mean, they pretty much summarize, teaching's great, exams can be hard, but specifically I want to point out those exams that have 2 of the above questions.
Oh Lord.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. That's what cripples my grades.
and it only ever seems to be in neuroscience.
Yeah.
I rarely see it in other classes.
Oh, yeah.
One of the above.
Yeah.
Select all that apply.
Oh my, it's the worst.
No, it's the psychology classes. Like that's how they're made. They just try to trick you up.
Right.
That basic psychology multiple choice questions.
Mm-hmm. Now, you already alluded to this, but you mentioned there's different streams in neuroscience. Walk me through that, and like, how does that work, and why did you pick the stream that you're in?
Oh, yeah, I'm the only one here in the like psychological cognitive stream, right?
Mhm.
Like you
Think
guys
so.
are. So there's 2 big streams in the neuroscience program. There you have the cellular biological stream, and you have the cognitive and behavioral stream. I'm in the cognitive behavioral. Finn, what are you planning on going into?
Sorry, man. Cellular, I think.
See, the one thing is the psychological stream. It's way more cellular than like anyone thought it was gonna be, because
Right.
like we have not really done any behavior really this year. We've been doing like some dorsal ventral streams, but everything has really just been like cellular stuff and kind of just applying that to that results in this action in rats or humans.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all generally cellular, like neuroscience stuff. Just kind of you can focus it more on behavioral and cognitive aspects, I guess. That's like the weirdest way to put it. But the reason I chose like the psychological stream over the cellular is, in the psychological stream you have a lot more flexibility in your 4th year courses you can take.
Right.
And that we have like the neuroplasticity course, the drugs and behavior, cognitive neuroscience,
Mm-hmm.
and I think neurocognition. They're like different courses, but so there was just like a lot more flexibility. Well, if you're in the biology course, you have I think 6 options for your 4th year bio classes you have to do, and 2 of those are CAPS courses with only like 50 seats. So you're basically stuck doing like vision and I don't know. Do you remember what the classes were for 4th year?
Not off the top
I
of
think
my
2 of the
head.
CAPS ones are disease related.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, that type of thing.
Is one of them.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
with Tim.
Neuromuscular junctions, I believe, something like that. Motor systems,
Yeah, and I think one for sensory.
maybe.
Yeah.
That might be behavioral.
Was that behavioral? It might be behavioral. But yeah, I just saw that there was a lot more options for the behavioral one, and like all the stuff I wanted to do was in the behavioral stream, so that's why.
I'm telling you can still switch over, man. It's the cellular is the basis of everything behavioral.
It's kind of funny that all us cellular people are wearing the shirts.
Yeah.
And we're like the one.
Join the dark side.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
That's what I was
the
thinking.
black sheep.
Yeah.
The one in white.
Yeah.
But,
We're the minority.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, what made you want to pick cellular?
Yeah, so I want to just say, first of all, kind of like you're talking about the streams not being so different. You still have to do cellular in your behavioral courses, in your behavioral stream. Yeah, because I mean, I don't want to bring this up right now, but I mean, we all heard about the neural correlates, right?
Yes.
The whole reading on that. Oh, maybe not Finn, because this is in 302. But because we're saying the brain, the physical brain, the cellular workings are the the cause, and basically they're connected intrinsically to the behaviors. So you gotta kind of understand both paths. Like even though we say we split off into cellular, molecular, and behavioral and cognitive, they're really not that far apart as people think they are. Like we have to learn both sides of it to basically understand. It's just where we focused on is more so the difference.
Right
And
on.
what was the question again? I forgot.
Well, why'd you pick cellular?
Oh, I mean, mostly because I guess I'm more interested in the physiological aspect, rather than sort of like the symptomatic aspect. Like, particularly, like I like to look at like neurodegenerative diseases, right? That's
Mhm.
what I'm really passionate about. So I'm more interested in like the morphological changes to the brain, right? Like in Alzheimer's, for example, you've got the widening of the ventricles, you've got loss of neuronal loss, things like that. Like I'm more interested in that rather than the symptoms. So personally, it's just what I'm interested in. But people who do behavior, it's just as important, right? It's the other half of it.
It's not.
Trying to be kind, you know.
Go ahead, Addy.
I pretty much agree with Neelan, but yeah, we like even in cellular we learn a little bit about behavioral, but it's just like the focus is less, like it's just where the bias is. But yeah, pretty much the same as Neelan. I think I like cellular because I really want to be able to understand how like the chemistry relates to behavior. I feel like in behavior, because behavioral streams, because the focus is so much on behavioral, you go down to like a level of maybe like the synapse or what's going on a synapse, but you don't really go further than that. But in Bio 371, which is one of our cellular courses, we really learn about like the chemistry and also the physics of how our neurons work, and that I think helps me understand behavior more. But because in my opinion, I think all of it, like none of this matters without behavior. So like even in the cellular stream, like our focus is on behavior. Like
Right.
that's the end goal. It's just we approach it differently. But
Yeah. I'm sorry, Kyler.
Oh no,
It-
that was like the best way I've ever
Yeah.
heard to put like the difference, because we are focusing on the
Yeah.
synaptic connections. That's like the entire course,
Right.
synaptic connections. Well, you guys are actually going into the neurons themselves, like what's driving all of that. So I think that's probably the best way to describe the course.
Yeah.
They probably should actually add that into like the descriptions.
Yeah.
That you're either doing the synapses or like the actual cellular components.
Right.
yeah,
So I guess what you're saying is we're looking at the same thing, but from a different perspective. One's more macro and one's more micro.
Yeah.
Makes sense. For someone who is in first year right now, what can they expect to learn over the course of their degree?
Enter neuroscience?
Yeah.
Oh.
What's like? Give me a broad description of how you would describe what you have learned so far.
I guess we've like learned the basis of behavior, right? Like in all the courses we've done, yeah, we basically like I feel like we can describe most of the neurological aspects that lead to behavior, of like what makes us what we are, right?
Right.
Yeah. What would you guys say?
sorry. I was gonna say the biggest thing I've learned is how to interpret and read articles. I
Right.
think I can do that much better than I could do before.
Yeah.
Especially like neuroscience articles. There's like, and it's you don't really notice it until you really think about it, because
Mhm.
a lot of it is very implicit now.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many terms that we've learned in class that like come up in articles, and I remember being so confused in first year.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main point of it. Like, because in Dr. Soma's class, and you'll find this, I think the most useful part, like in this entire like degree so far,
Mhm.
has been his written answers.
Absolutely.
In terms of he gets you to like critique different experimental technique, like methods or something, and make your own. And that was probably the most useful thing for me, and that's like helped me with a lot of things now. But for me, that's what I learned.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's a coincidence you asked this question because for me, I feel like for a lot of us, we kind of overestimate just what people understand about the brain. Like, I talked to my friend the other day who's, he's a very smart guy. He's in mechanical engineering. And he asked me something, and I said, I mentioned the word neuron. And he asked me, what is that? Right? So even something so simple for us, like we all know what a neuron is, right? A lot of people don't understand that. And I feel like if you don't go into the neuroscience program, you're going to be missing out on basically like a whole exploration of topics, right? There's a lot of things we cover in neuroscience that you're not going to get in other classes. And what I really feel is best about that as a first year is that, we all have a brain, right? We all use it on a daily basis. And for us to actually understand what's going on, like, why am I having this kind of behavior? Like, why am I feeling this way? And kind of understand that and work around it. Like, for example, right, for me, I used to have a pretty bad sleep schedule. Like, I used to be sleeping like not many hours in high school, right? But when I came to university and I learned about how important sleep was, especially for the brain, then after that I started sleeping more and more, to try and improve my mood, improve my academic ability, things like that, right? You can really utilize that knowledge you learn on a daily basis in neuroscience. And I feel like not every field you can say the same, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I don't want to mention anything in particular, right? But I feel like some things are just, you're looking at something so far away, it's so hard to use that knowledge.
Yeah. What about you, Fanny? I know you've only been in the major for a term now, but what have you learned so far that stood out to you?
I can definitely attest to what Addy was saying about understanding and like summarizing articles. I mean, we've just started that with a project in NSci 200, and at the start, it was definitely pretty tricky. I was like, what the hell is going on in this paper? But it's starting to come together, and I think as I do more and more courses, as our cohort does more and more courses, it's going to get better and better.
Right on. So just to summarize all of that, I couldn't agree more with the research methods part. I think the point of this degree really is to like prepare you to be a neuroscientific researcher. And part of that comes with, we have to operationalize variables that are so like intangible. We learned about stuff like that, learn about the basis of behavior. All behavior comes down to neural activity. And then, of course, everything that we learn, it's so closely tied to our lives, whether that's neuroeducation, sleep, lifestyle. And there really aren't many majors that can say that they kind of bring together all three of those aspects. Yeah, it's on this.
I just wanted to agree with Neelan. I think Neelan's part was really good, like in terms of like really like understanding yourself and being able to take care of yourself. It helps a lot. Like especially I think with stress and learning about like because I think when we focus on stress and when you're not in neuroscience, you just kind of think of like its effect on your mood or your behavior, right? But it has real like long lasting changes, and like that's made me think of it differently and being way more careful with it, right? Like this is not something that if I get stressed now, I'll go away. Yeah, this can stay with me, type of thing.
So like the physiological basis of stress. We literally had a unit on this.
I know, it was my favorite
201.
unit,
Yeah.
I love that. In fact, nowadays I don't even tell my friends, I'm feeling stressed. I'm like, I've got elevated cortisol.
It's the most neuro thing of all time. But before I let you go, Addy, how much sleep did you get last night?
Okay, it's not like I use it's not like I use the advice all the time. It's like I think like it's like not all doctors like use the advice that they give out, right?
Sure.
They same thing here. Like we
practice
learn about
what you preach, man.
Yeah, I got it, but I slept a good amount.
Yeah. Okay. I won't pester you with that, but let's move into something a little more fun. What's the community like in neuroscience?
I feel like in second year, at least so far, it's pretty good. A lot of your classmates, you have your little regular bunch that you sit with in classes. Just hearing about the transition from first to second year with some of my other friends, I feel like they don't have the same community. It's like the commuter life, you commute to school, you don't see very many of your friends on campus, then you go home. But in neuro, it's like you go to school and, oh shit, I'm in the same classes as all my buddies. Like, what could be better?
Yeah. I think that was certainly my experience, like having all of you with me in neuro. Like we had basically the same courses first and second term last year, and this year we have like at least 2 or 3 classes in common.
I heard somewhere. I have to check this. This could be a lie, but that like I think Sasha told me this, that if you sit at the front, and the act of having your head angled a little bit up can actually help in some way.
It increases your attention.
Yeah.
It's a very Huberman.
Yeah, it is a very like yeah, I know what you're saying, but
there's some like primal instinct where when you look up, you're more alert. You're like scanning for danger.
Yeah, oh, I see. But to answer the question, I think it's nice like going to classes with the same people.
Yeah.
Like it kind of I hope they keep the program size like relatively small, because it's not small, but it's not like big, right?
Well, you guys, what's the community like for you?
I mean, like we said, we're all in the same year, so it's pretty similar.
Yeah.
I will mention something that I found really funny when I first did second year neuroscience. I can't remember from what class to what class, but there was a time slot in our schedules that everyone had, right? We had 2 neuroscience classes back to back.
Oh yeah.
201 to 200 to 277.
I think so. Yeah. So, and it was just so funny watching us march like ants. 150 ants.
It was all the way across campus.
Going from swing to what is it?
Buchanan.
Yeah.
It was so
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have that anymore. But we had that.
Yeah, in the dead of winter.
Chem to the huge dumpster.
Huge jump.
Huge jumps.
Sorry. The Hugh Dempster Pavilion. Yeah. We all call it that, though.
That's someone's name.
Dude. Good lord.
That's funny.
Before I let you answer, the community is like the typical question that I get every single time I tell someone that I'm in neuroscience, and I'm sure you do too. Is everyone insanely smart?
How do I answer this without like insulting people? No, like everyone is like, everyone is very nerdy, which
Yeah.
I really like because I make a bunch of like very niche jokes about the brain a lot to people, and
Yeah.
they get it. This is like the only group of people where I can be like, "Oh, happy birthday! I hope your life is as stable as the vestibular nuclei," which I wrote
I don't
in
even
someone's
get that.
birthday card recently, and
You're not neuroanatomy, bro. You're not neuroanatomy.
You told me a funny one the other day that I can't say.
Well, let's keep it that way. Yeah.
But it's really fun. What's the effect where like you think you know a lot more than you actually do?
Dunning-Kruger.
Yeah, that. In second year, I thought I basically knew everyone, and then in third year, I was like, wait, I don't know like any
Yeah.
of these people, and I'm getting to know people more now, right? And I'm like talking to people about like,
Yeah.
their labs and like, what they think about the classes, and it's definitely like interesting, like hearing all this different research that's being done at the school, because do you know like how much is actually being done? Like there's all these like insanely niche studies being done with like video cameras and EEGs, fMRIs. Like it's
Mhm.
insane.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, a great community though.
Yeah. You got anything to add to the is everyone insanely smart?
I think the same thing as before. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Do you have to do research in your courses? Like, is that a requirement?
In your courses?
Or like outside of school?
I feel like not necessarily doing it, but you're definitely involved, like we said before, with dissecting papers and like the neuroscience literature.
Mm-hmm.
I think they try and involve that into your courses a lot to prepare people for grad school
Right.
and some sort of research career.
Yeah, it definitely prepares people for like research. Like most people I know aren't like involved in research, but like those who are were like pretty well prepared for it by third year
Mhm.
because of all the papers we've had to read and the techniques we had to learn, especially in Soma's class.
Oh yeah.
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 Right
I
on.
was talking to Ryan. He was like, he's very strongly like recommends that you don't do direct studies and the capstone at the same time if you're doing like one lab.
Right.
He said that's not a very good idea. But if you're doing two different projects, he said it's totally.
Oh,
cool.
okay. I
But-
see.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, I already talked to my current supervisor about
Mhm.
the capstone.
Right on.
If like we're just gonna continue the same projects to the capstone. Yeah,
Okay.
If that's allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's my current plan.
Okay. Let's bring it home, shall we? What is the coolest neuroscience fact that you have learned so far?
You can't do this to me.
This is one you have to think of. This one
Okay.
can be organic.
I just love to see this look on your guys' faces.
I had one. I don't know if it's cool.
Okay, let's hear it.
And I'm sure everyone.
You know
here-
what? Give me one of the coolest. I won't put that much pressure on you guys.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you've learned it yet, but one thing we learned again, cortisol, and how it can increase. Was it? I don't know if it was dendritic growth in the amygdala or something.
Mhm.
Dendritic growth in the amygdala. And that was another thing that I find cool, like the real, like you can see the long lasting effects of stress, and the effect of that, is that a larger amygdala is, I think it's thought to be that it's just you have a heightened fear response. So
Right.
yeah, I think learning about that was pretty cool. And
That's fascinating.
yeah.
So higher stress levels cause you to become more fearful.
Yeah, and it's because you're literally your amygdala grows.
Wow.
Yeah.
We don't really understand why antidepressants work.
Mhm.
We're kind of like, because like the previous reason we thought like serotonin reuptake inhibitors worked was they would block your ability to reuptake serotonin, leaving more serotonin in like your synapse, leading more of it to bind, and that would basically cause happiness. But the reason that theory is like being kind of thrown out right now is because those effects would be immediate, so the depression would be like instantly solved, kind of.
Right.
So the more recent idea of why we think SSRIs work is because they're allowing for neurotropic factors. What was the one we had from the project?
BDNF?
It's BDNF.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it basically causes BDNF to be released. That's the idea. Strengthening connections. Basically allowing your brain to be more plastic, rewire itself, and it helps people kind of get out of that depressive state.
Right.
And yeah, that's the most interesting thing I've learned, that like, you know, I think that's the thing with a lot of neuroscience topics, that we don't really understand why they work. Like most of the stuff we're learning right now in like third year, most of it is like theoretical right now. Like what we were learning about thalamus function, yeah.
Well, it does tie back to life very often too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But basically, our ideas, like these are very new theories. Like,
Yeah.
Recent, like
Last 10
2010s.
years, yeah.
Yeah. So like this field is like really, I guess it's a very plastic.
Yeah. Everything's so new.
Yeah.
But hold on, I'm curious what you had about chloroform now. And why do you know this?
This was an NSI 200.
It was.
Yeah, so in NSI 200, we basically briefly learned that chloroform doesn't instantly cause people to, like, it's a general inhibitor, but it doesn't cause people to instantly knock it out. And I was like, oh, how long does it take? So I basically went through a bunch of papers from ranging from the 1800s to modern day, and there's not that much written on chloroform. It's really weird. But I basically found out the way chloroform was discovered was this guy basically took the chemical. How much time do I have to explain this?
Do it.
This guy took this chemical and he used it on some rabbits, and it caused them to pass out, and then they came back awake and he was like, oh, it's a general anesthetic. Awesome. And then the rabbits died soon after. And he was like, oh, cool. I'm going to test it on myself and my friends. So they basically took turns of increasing doses of chloroform till they basically passed out.
Yeah.
It was a chloroform party, and they basically did this, and they were like, wow, this is such a good general anesthetic. And then from there, basically, Queen Victoria used it during childbirth. And it became very popular after that.
Of course, if the Queen's doing it, we
yeah,
gotta
the
do
Queen's
it.
Doing it. So basically, it became very popular, and then they realized it was killing a bunch of people when they went under for surgery, and we created other forms of anesthesia like nitric oxide, so we just stopped using chloroform.
Doesn't it also take minutes of exposure?
So for adults, it takes about 5 minutes of constant exposure.
So all those movies have been lying to us.
So where does that come from? That was my big question. Where did that misconception come from? I've talked to you guys about this so many times. But where did that misconception come from? So in a paper I found from the 1850s was basically, there was this case where this British politician, I think, basically claimed to have been chloroformed because he was found basically in the bed of what's the proper term for this? Of a sex worker.
I see.
And he basically claimed, oh, she chloroformed me, robbed me blind, and did all this stuff to get out of the guilt of the situation. And this case basically spread like wildfire. And all the doctors at the time were like, oh, that's not that's not possible. It takes a while for chloroform to work. But it was the 1850s. It's very hard to get science out there, right?
There's no peer-reviewed data.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, this spread. It was a tale. In the 1900s, it was adapted into a movie. In the early 1910s. I think the movie was called Hot Water, but I'd have to double check. And basically, in the scene, basically they just chloroformed the grandmother because she was being annoying casually.
Dude.
As you do.
Yeah, as one does.
And that's the first case of chloroform being used as a narrative technique.
Wow.
That I could find at least. And then from there, it basically just passed on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still used today.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Speaking of movies, I got to share the coolest fact I learned. If you know me, you know I love old westerns with duels and stuff like that. Something really cool that Addie mentioned to me earlier, but then I found in our textbook, was if you are in a duel with someone, as one finds themselves in, don't be you know how you walk 10 steps away and then you turn around and then you start then you can shoot each other. Don't be the first to draw your gun, because if you voluntarily do that action where you pull out your gun and you point, that is going to be slower than the other person seeing. Exactly, it's going to be a reflexive action for the other person because they're going to see you reach for your gun and they're going to quickly do that reflex. So exactly,
It's in our textbook. I remember now. I said that in front of the entire class.
You did.
In NSCI, because at the end of NSCI 201, we had to say what was our favorite thing we learned, right?
Yeah.
And I said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
forgot about
It
that.
stuck with me.
Yeah, it's a crazy fact, right?
So don't get into a duel with the neuroscientist. It's not going to end well. Boom. All right. That'll do it for us here in the academic team. Thanks for tuning in.